who podcasts and you're planning to attend a networking event or live conference where your potential clients are going to be, then you're sitting on an unknown goldmine of explosive podcast growth. In this video, I share my exact process that'll set you up to get maximum ROI on the next live event that you attend. If you are an expert looking for the best advice on how to grow your podcast audience, then subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to be notified when I post a video. Deidre Shen, the CEO and co-founder of Capsho, the world's first AI-powered podcast copywriter. I've been working with experts who cumulatively have banked over $1.6 million in sales. I myself did over $200,000 in my first year podcasting because of all of these little known secrets. So let's get into how to use a live event to growth hack your podcast without being a speaker or organizer. Okay, so this particular strategy, what we're going to take you through is something we literally stumbled upon by attending Podfest.
Yes.
It was not designed. We made a lot of mistakes, but we've learned from them, and we're going to bring you an awesome hack to use at your next live event to grow your podcast. And in fact, we've got another 2 live events this year that we've scheduled in. Yes. I think we're going to be doing this over and over again. So we can definitely loop back in and tell you how that all goes. Okay, so let's take you through the 3 steps of what to do before a live event in order to grow your podcast. And I would say start doing this at least 4 weeks beforehand, if possible, if you have the time. Okay, so step number 1 is you want to identify and go to a live event where your dreamiest listeners are attending. Okay, this is key. This is so important. Now, the reason why Podfest worked so well for us was because for Capsho, our whole what we do is designed specifically for podcasters. So it was like, gosh, it was a field day for us. Yeah. We were like, yes, look at all these podcasters.
Yes.
And so that's why it was so effective for us. So this is depending, whatever your podcast is about, whoever your audience is, you have to identify a live event where they are all hanging out, where they are there for that specific reason.
Yes. And your show, in this case, I'm just trying to, put in the analogy that we're using. Exactly. And your show is just a very compelling solution or partial solution. So similarly with Capsho, it was funny because we went in going, oh, this is going to be interesting. There's people who are, for example, presenting on how to write a really good set of show notes. And our solution does it for them. Is it going to be awkward? But these people were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
So good, yeah.
Can I include it in your presentation, my presentation?
Yeah, the presenter for that particular talk was like, please, can you give me a video so I can show it?
Can I try it if I could before?
Yeah,
can I show it? And then the way she presented it was like, I wish I knew these guys before I put my presentation together. Right. And it was just, and that's the thing, that's why you want to really always have, I think, a collaboration mindset.
Yes.
So because there are going to be these potentially awkward in your mind anyway, situations. But wherever your dreamiest people are hanging out and your podcast helps give them a solution or something that they're there to learn about, I think is going to be the critical thing.
Yeah. Now, I'm totally going to butcher this example up, so bear with me. But we met someone at Podfest who wasn't quite our ideal client, but he was like our ideal user. But he was like, let's give it a go anyway. So he has a podcast that is like Dungeons and Dragons. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, but basically, I think the concept is that there's maybe 5 or 6 of them that hop on. He's the dungeon master.
Yes.
And basically they talk through a game
as they're playing, I think,
of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And it's specifically about they're like a band that's touring America. Oh, I don't know if that was just a particular episode. Anyway, so
that's the part that I don't understand.
Yeah. Anyway, it's to do with Dungeons and Dragons. Now, okay, so I'm going to assume because it's pretty big. What I know is that Dungeons and Dragons is a pretty big, there's a lot of people who are into it. So I'm going to assume that there are events, conferences, communities, things that they are put together. Yeah. For some reason, the thing that comes to mind is Comic-Con. I don't know if that, I apologize if that, but let's assume that there is some kind of Dungeons and Dragons thing in Comic-Con, right? This person could actually, that would be a perfect live event for him to growth hack for his podcast,
I love
right?
That. Yeah.
So again, not necessarily an expert as such, but if he's looking to grow his listenership, like they are his people.
Totally.
So this is the thing, when you think about what type of live event, like there is always going to be a live event where your dreamers listeners are going to.
Absolutely.
Where they're congregating.
Yeah. We met some people, and one of them was an alpha tester for us, but who had very specific podcasts around helping people date or find love.
Yes.
Again, that's it's not about going to Podfest is great obviously because they're learning how to make their podcasts better.
Yeah.
But really they would be going to events again around relationships. There's just so many, small and big events going on because it's such a universal problem that people are looking to solve.
Yes.
So it would just be about popping yourself in those environments to be like, well, this is what I cover in my podcast.
Yes.
So I think that's another example as well.
Okay, so that's the first step, okay? Identify and go sign up to a live event where your dreamiest listeners are attending as well. So the second step is to find a way, and this is almost the hack part, okay? This is find a way to source an attendee list. Now, again, Podfest, because it's so community focused, was actually relatively easy because they actually designed or they leveraged, I guess, an app called the Hoover app that had everyone in it that was registered to attend. I know a lot of other events have Facebook groups. They start Facebook groups for that particular event. I mean, we've been to many, Tony Robbins, like even virtual events and stuff. Like they've got so many like Facebook groups for each thing that comes up. So if you can find a way to source an attendee list, and you might need to if there are some that don't give out or they don't have a Facebook group, whatever, then just see if you might need to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole.
Yes.
Find a way to get to a point where even if you have to piece it together, then, just by looking at who's commenting on what and, who's posting about what, it might be a little bit of a slow burn, but this is the key really. Like you need to be able to find the actual people that are going.
Yes. And this is a step where I would say quality over quantity. I think we were very lucky with Podfest, as you say, because there's a lot of people and the community is just so excited.
Yes.
But really the point here that you're making is a really important one about, even if it's 5 to 10 people that you can identify, the 5 to 10 people that are obviously they're evangelizers of the event and hence whatever that event is going to be about, so the topic area, which means they're extremely keen as someone who's looking for that solution, or they are an influencer, let's say, of sorts in that community. Both really great people to try and meet. So one of the events that we're going to, one of the two that we're going to, doesn't have as big a, let's say, push as Podfest did. So what we're looking at is exactly what you say. Whenever that particular organization is posting about the upcoming event, just on their social media, we can have a look to say who's commenting, who's excited, who's saying, I can't wait to be there.
Yes.
And then just do a little bit of light stalking, nothing crazy, just to say, okay, where might this person fit in my ecosystem of, are they a collaborator, are they a potential customer, and what are the things that they're talking about, which really gives you that insight into, well, okay, if I can find this person at the event, amazing, but where can I find more of these people?
Yes. And there are, I know that Bonner said it's quality over quantity, but there is, in order for step 3 to kind of be a lot more effective for you, we do want to aim for, if we can, to get 100
of course
people on, on that list. And by 100, we actually mean who they are, and if you can, with that light stalking, find an email address for them. Okay, so that's step number 2, is to find a way to source an attendee list. So then step number 3, which is the follow-on from that, is to actually start to run a traffic campaign to your podcast. So can you talk us through that, Bonner, as a bit of an ads expert? How would someone run a traffic campaign, and to what? Because I think there are 2 things that we've tested before.
And we continue to test, so we'll have to make sure that we give updates on that. So like Deidre said, get a list of at least 100 people. So in my mind, I was like, because Podfest had like 1,500, 2,000 people. So to me, that was, so when I say quality, we want to get to at least 100 people, which is not as hard as it sounds. It's not as hard as it sounds, because a lot of these events are quite big, and you can go down, once you find a certain person, then they can lead on to the next. So relativity wise, the reason 100 is important is because that's the smallest number of people you need to be able to upload your contact list onto Facebook. And the two things that we've been trying, and we've been testing this out, we've been talking about this with a few other collaborators as well. So the first thing that you can do is you can run a traffic campaign to a particular episode. So whenever we do, well, you should be doing this anyway if you don't, but whenever we do episodes and we plan episodes, we always plan them around hot buttons, and you'll know organically which ones are performing really well. So for us, as an example, the episode we did, very specific one on episode titles, did really well because people were like, oh yes, you know, there's a lot of stuff out there for how to come up with a podcast name, but not so much titles. So that did really well. So we knew that was organically a good one. So it's just about running a traffic campaign, and traffic just means eyeballs, just sending people to click through to that episode, where you can just run a very, very simple, this is what the episode is about. You can play around with a few different graphics, but send them directly to listen to that episode and see how that does. And the other thing that you can try, the other traffic campaign that you can try is every episode should have a set of show notes. If you don't have them, Capsho is definitely a great solution for you, because I know that this can take a long time to create. But having a blog style page with your show notes that go into the actual for the actual episode, you can also run traffic campaign to that particular destination.
Yes.
So it's still to do with the episode, it still builds profile and visibility for your podcast, because obviously it's going to be branded, but it's running it to a specific episode. And then you can see obviously the metrics with ads as to what people are clicking through to and things like that.
Yeah. And obviously we want people, I mean, this is twofold. One is you will be able to grow your audience, like, you know, most people, you will get click-throughs and hopefully listens from that.
Yes.
But really the main reason why we want to do this is because this is all about visibility, right? So if people start to see your brand, your podcast name over and over again, then when you go to this live event and you introduce yourself and you say, blah, 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 I'm the host of insert podcast name, then hopefully, and this, you know, if you've got a good podcast name, then that's all the better, then people will be like, I know you from somewhere.
Yeah, they're like, oh, it seems familiar.
I've seen you before.
Yes.
Exactly. And that is how you start to create that visibility before the event, so that when you get to the event, it's no longer a cold, like, let me, you know, meet people and explain who I am and what I do. I mean, you'll still probably have to do a little bit of this. Don't get away from that. But if you can already start to build this visibility with, even if it's like a pocket of people in, you know, for us, as Bonner said, Podfest had thousands of people. We did not reach thousands of people.
I think we tried, but no.
It's not possible. So we only knew, you know, a handful of people. And then from there, it grows and grows and grows, because as we know with all communities, people talk and they share, right? So the main aim here is just to be creating, how do we create visibility for you and your podcast before live events, that you're going to a live event, not cold, not like I'm a nobody, but actually with a bit of presence.
Yes. And I think one little thing to add to that is it is going to make you stand out in the sense of, with Podfest, everyone had podcasts or were involved in that, you know, kind of podcasting space. And we were someone that was doing something to help podcasters, right? So similarly, if you're going to an event, like the example, it's a Dungeons and Dragons event, and you're just that fun person that's come up to say, we also love Dungeons and Dragons, and we have this really fun podcast. I mean, that's not going to be the ad copy itself, but that's how it's going to come across, to be like, oh, these guys are really cool. You know, it hooks them. It hooks people. So I think that's the thing to remember, that it is going to make you stand out as an adjacent offering to what the people are already looking for.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. So in summary, how do we get you to get out of your own head whenever you go to these live events? How do you growth hack a live event for your podcast? Step one, identify and go to a live event where your dreamiest listeners. That's important. It's key that they are attending, where they are congregating. Step two is find a way to source an attendee list. And step three is just run really cost-effective traffic campaigns to particular episode, particular show notes of your podcast. And then go for it. Let me know in the comments if you learned something new from this video. And if you want to hear the full story behind how I stumbled upon this little known secret, then listen to episode 13 of the Grow My Podcast show. I'll leave the link for that below. Here out, if you want to know exactly what to do in your show notes to make your podcast incredibly easy for your ideal audience to find, and this one down here if you want to learn about the traffic pyramid, the exact strategy on how I've grown my own podcast audience.